Hello there, my name is Maurice Flynn, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how artificial intelligence can be used by almost anyone for very powerful analytics. Welcome to everyone, thank you for joining. You will have opportunities to ask questions through the session. You should see on, I think, the right-hand side of your screen various links for asking questions. And I will check back periodically and try and respond to those in batches as we go through. Okay, so in terms of background then, the material that I'll be presenting off today, which you should see on your screens now, mostly comes from a book I've been involved in writing recently. And as a follow-up to this session, I'll be able to make available a synopsis of that content for those that are interested. So my name is Maurice Flynn, bit of background. I've been working in this space and related areas for several decades now. I first bumped into the maths behind artificial intelligence back in my university days and have been interested in applying it ever since, but really it's only since the digital boom and the internet becoming mainstream that it's really become fashionable, if you like, for companies to look at this area. Through that time, I've worked with many different companies, including some of the big famous names, and I've acted as a consultant and project manager in helping companies deliver these types of projects. And I've learned a lot from what's worked and what hasn't worked, and plenty of mistakes and errors along the way. I am a fellow of the RSA, the IDM, and CIM, and again, do a lot of pro bono work for them and other charities. So do feel free to get in touch. I've got profiles on all the usual social media, including LinkedIn, my Amazon page around the books. Do feel free to get in touch. I'm always happy to help on a pro bono basis for good causes and just be useful in the AI community, help us all understand what's going on and get better for the benefit of all, really. And I had a couple of helpers on this piece of work, happened to be two of my brothers, Chris and Killian. So what I'm going to take you through today, hopefully from that background, has started to reassure you that this is not just off the top of my head thinking. It's based on a lot of trial and error and learning and looking at much better experts than me, looking at their best practice and adapting it to the projects and the challenges that I've had. And on this chart, you can just see some of the feedback that we've had from organizations, large and small, banks, universities, big marketing groups, startups, who in general have said we need a simpler approach to AI. Our teams are getting confused. We don't have enough experts. We need a simple approach so we can get started and start learning. It's like digital 20, 30 years ago. We know we need to get ready for this, but we don't know where to start and we can't find enough experts. And that's what this presentation and this content is all about. So I'm going to take you through three sections today, break this down fairly evenly. Going to start off with today's artificial intelligence, an overview of what is AI today, why is everyone getting overexcited about it, some of the key questions, what do we need to think about around things like ethics and AI, and what's it good for, current AI, what does it mean, AI, and then what's it good for. Second section will be case studies, and I won't have time to go through all of these, but I'll just take a selection of case studies to bring to life how companies are using AI and delivering real business value today. And I'll quote some numbers around that. And the third section is about success factors. So if you are facing an AI project of any size, large or small, expert or beginner, these are the success factors I've learned over the past 10 years and beyond of how we make these projects more likely to succeed and fail. And like all new things, failure is more common than success. So hopefully these success factors will be useful on that basis. Okay, let me just quickly go back, see if any questions have come up, see if any problems so far with any of the technical setup. Looks all okay so far, so I will crack on that basis. Okay, so as I say, content comes mainly from a book. I'll provide a synopsis of the content. If anyone wants more, feel free to get in touch through BrightTALK or through social media for further help. Because with BrightTALK, it's all about providing information and help and avoiding any sort of a sales message. So I'm very much focusing on sharing information. Anyway, a lot of what I do currently is all available for free online. So all of the things I recommend today are available to use free of charge, which I think is really important. Okay, so today's artificial intelligence, what does it mean? Let's go through a quick overview of that. So what is today's AI? So in general, artificial intelligence today is a bit of a fuzzy subject because even the experts can't quite agree what it should mean. And by that, specifically, I mean that there's kind of two schools of thought. Others might subdivide it further. But one school of thought says we have artificial intelligence today. It may not be perfect, but it's useful and it's working. And then another school of thought say what we have today is not really artificial intelligence. It's just not intelligent enough, and we need further breakthroughs to get to AI. My position on that is, end of the day, we've got to use what we've got today. And if we think of AI as meaning software machines that demonstrate equal or better, then human effectiveness plus ongoing learning in complex challenges, then I think we can definitely see that in some of the case studies we're going to talk about today. So you'll sometimes hear terms about terminology. I try and keep the jargon to a minimum in these sessions because everyone's confused enough as it is. But essential jargon I will point out and try and explain. So you hear about general AI and narrow AI. Now, narrow AI is the sort of thing we tend to see most today. It's what AI means today. It's AI tackling single issues or a combination of issues that are related to each other. And this can be data analysis, such as computers understanding images and even creating content such as images. And general AI is meant a more adaptable human-like intelligence. And all the experts agree that we are still far from that. They can't agree on when it might happen. Some say 10 years, some say 100 years plus, but we're all agreed that we're nowhere near general AI currently. So hopefully that's reassuring to all those that are terrified of the impending takeover of the robot world. It's not happening anytime soon. So why is AI exciting then? Well, around 2012, an approach called deep learning, which has also been around much longer than that, but it was shown to enable rapid improvement in certain areas such as computer vision and audio and text analysis. And since then, even content creation. And this caused an awful lot of excitement because the improvement in results in these areas was so significant. It was like a massive breakthrough. Now, the issue with this type of AI called deep learning is the effectiveness in certain areas is pretty high, pretty impressive, but it hasn't been fully explained. The mathematics and the reason why it works haven't been fully mapped out by the experts. And therefore, quite often we find ourselves doing what I call manual fiddling to make it work, i.e. we cannot say at the start of a deep learning AI project, this is exactly what we're going to do to deliver the results. We have to play around and do some fiddling to get the setup to work. A second approach in this area called machine learning is much better understood and has therefore been very widely adopted. And when you see, 1,001 products saying we are AI enabled now, generally speaking, that means machine learning. We'll talk more about what that means. And generally speaking, they've been doing it for years, if not decades, but now it's become a marketing message. So how does AI work specifically? Well, today's AI, what we've got today, is a combination of very old mathematics with new and ever cheaper computing power. And it, in fact, is able to work through many different types of computer languages. What it does, AI, today, is it's a process that enables us to find patterns in historical data, in data or content, which is data at the end of the day. And then once these patterns have been found using mathematics and the software, then that enables us to predict future events using those same patterns. And we can also use it to understand other images with similar patterns and also even create content like images, again, using similar patterns. And we'll go into more detail what we mean by that. So what's this thing about ethics and AI, and why is that causing such a fuss at the moment? Well, it's a hot topic because we want to make sure that we don't bake in any biases into these new systems, particularly if we're going to use them for important stuff like healthcare or, in some countries, even security. Now, at the same time, we've got to remember that the processes that we're currently using are far from unbiased because they're generally human processes. And despite all our best efforts, none of us are completely bias-free. So we have to approach this space with some clear thinking. Now, one of the main AI solutions to ensure ethical AI, beyond the debate of what should and shouldn't be allowed and whether things should be legally defined, etc. But the main issue is to making sure the data that we use when we build tools and models and machines in this space is representative of what we're trying to predict and also used in a fair way, in line with any risks involved in what we're trying to do, and with what I call a people-first mindset. So an approach that makes sure that people are first, their safety is obviously first, and generally we're trying to do good rather than do harm. Now, new privacy laws, such as GDPR coming out of Europe, can both help, but unfortunately in some cases hinder this area, and we can talk more about that if that's an area of interest. So the ethics questions we need to consider around AI, and this is particularly for those that are building big AI software solutions for other companies to use, or uploading data sets into those systems to build important models in high-risk areas, is this a high-risk area where we need extra care, such as healthcare, where obviously we don't want to do anything without carefully considering the implications? Secondly, are we improving a biased system? Well, if we're improving a biased system, then that's hopefully a good thing. And thirdly, are we using data that's fair and representative? So if the data we're using is meant to represent everyone in the world, then it needs to have data from a fair sample of all the different types of people in the world. And are we aiming in general for public good, or is this a solely private project with private gain? If what we're doing is for public good, saving the planet, reducing poverty, then again, we can be a bit more relaxed than a project that's just out to make money. And the answers to those questions then guide us as to how fast we can go. So do I need AI? Coming to the crux of this section, well, let's look at the near future on this. Experts agree that AI will reach everywhere there is software, and as a result, almost all of us will need retraining, and we'll also need to be ready to battle, if you like, misuse of AI. So it's relevant to most of us, and also on the positive side, the potential benefits are pretty huge. So again, what's the checklist for do I need AI today, or is it something for tomorrow or further out in the future? Well, here's some simple questions we can ask ourselves. Do we need to make important decisions based on gut feel? Secondly, do we sometimes fail to use our customers' data or the data we have in the business to continually improve? Thirdly, do we have competition that is more savvy than we are with data? And if we answered yes to those questions, then that's a simple way of guiding that we probably do need to at least know what AI is about, what's coming, and how we might adapt to that. But what are the challenges of AI? And this really comes to an area that most of us are struggling with. One issue that slows down so-called AI projects is confusion around what sort of experts are needed. Now, I would argue that too many experts in this space seem to love the jargon that makes this topic much harder to understand than it really needs to be. Now, we, that's myself and some of my colleagues, have reviewed numerous AI case studies, the tools that are now available, the training courses that are available. And looking across all of those, we reckon that the vast majority of the world's population need a simpler approach. They don't have the technical or the data science knowledge to benefit from all of the content that's out there. And therefore, if we want to make AI accessible to all, probably a good thing, then we need a simpler approach for the vast majority of the population. A couple of last points in this section, and then I'll check the questions and move on to some case studies. What is AI good for? Based on hundreds of case studies, research, papers, and our own hands-on work in this area, the top ethical opportunity that we can see, myself and my colleagues, is in enhancing our limited human expert resources using big data analysis and prediction, as well as in some areas, content processing and creation. So where expert resources in short supply, that could be doctors and nurses in certain parts of the world, or X-ray radiographers, that could be data science experts in most of the world. Well, where that expert resource is in short supply, AI can potentially help fill some of those gaps. And hopefully, using the right way, that can be a good thing. Most of the excitement we see at the moment is in the following areas: automation, automating simple repetitive functions such as administrative roles, search, customer service, in retail and logistics. Obviously there's a lot of concern about job losses and redundancy. So again, that's why the people first approach to AI is so important. Hopefully the technology is going to create new roles that will enhance and build on and replace anywhere that employment becomes negatively impacted. Prediction, making better predictions in finance, in HR, in medicine, security, marketing, sales, all these areas always need better predictions, and AI can make better predictions for a variety of reasons we'll talk about. And thirdly, in creation, creating visual, oral, text-based content. It's not as good as human content yet, but it certainly can help humans in their creative process in certain areas, and we'll look at some case studies of that. So in conclusion, most experts agree that AI can and should be a force for good, putting expert capabilities in the hands of many more billions of people than ever before. So let's check back for any questions and we move on to some case studies. Okay, so yeah, a couple of questions from the audience. Are there any additional supporting slides? So we're on a screen share at the moment, so there should be a button on your screen that you can click in order to see the content that I'm sharing. It's actually a section of Word documents, but you should be able to click on the screen and see that. Yeah, and the two questions are saying, do you have slides to show? So you should have a button on your screen that can get you through to the content that I'm sharing. If not, click on the technical service button and they will help you. Okay, let's just check anything else. That's the main stuff for now. Okay, great. Okay, so let's move on to some case studies, because at the end of the day, the theory is all very well, but you really need to see practical examples to bring this stuff to life and make it more useful. Okay, so I've got quite a few here, and I'll just pull out a selection that I think are useful to the kind of mixed audiences that we normally get on the BrightTALK sessions. So first of all, if you work in marketing or creative, or your company has departments in those areas, then you may be interested to know, or you may be already aware, that Adobe, who provide a lot of great software in this space, has been adding AI capabilities such as machine learning enhancements to their marketing and design tools to make these capabilities available to their thousands, if not millions, of customers. Now, what do we mean by machine learning? This session is deliberately code-free, so it's not about the code. It's more about explaining this for a wider, non-technical audience. Machine learning is really, the simplest way to think about it is that we are putting our data, so it could be numbers, could be images, could be words, into the software, and then we're applying mathematical analysis to that data in order to find patterns. So what Adobe have been doing, for example, in their photo libraries, is using the machine learning software and mathematics to help predict which images might be more useful to their customers. And that could be based on their historical interests, what they've clicked on the past, what they've looked on in the past. So from that historical data, they can find patterns. This person is always interested in pictures of mountains or pictures of people or cityscapes. Therefore, I can proactively suggest the software more of those types of pictures in case that's still relevant. And machine learning means that we're continually feeding the latest data back into the system, the latest clicks of the user, so that the predictions are kept up to date. So if the person that's been using pictures of mountains suddenly starts using pictures of lakes or cityscapes, then the machine learning mathematics and software picks up on that, and the predictions and the recommendations are changed automatically. So most of us have seen recommendations. We see it when we do a Google search. The search engine recommends what it thinks we're looking for. We see it on our Amazon account, when Amazon recommends books for us and so forth. We see it on our Netflix, where films are recommended based on our history, what we've done in the past, and what people similar to us, based on our profile information, have also found useful. So that's a simple explanation of machine learning. Just to finish off on this Adobe example. So as I say, they're using on the data side this data analysis to make real-time personalization decisions. So I see images or content that's relevant for me based on my history. You see something that's very different based on your history on the machine, on the software. On the design side, they're actually doing some very experimental work around helping us adapt designs based on facial feedback. And in the very experimental space, they're even using so-called virtual reality setups where you put on a sort of face mask and your every movement can be tracked and analyzed in order to start to identify how people feel about design. So that's really at the experimental end of things. Okay, so let's have a look at a few more examples here. Here's one from the art world. So this robot, or this piece of software, which has been called IDA, has been set up to create art. So it has looked at a lot of art from lots of different famous artists over the years, and then analyzed the art using mathematics in the software, and then seen patterns, what different types of art looks like, so impressionist and so forth. What does that type of art generally look like? And then from that, and based on a client's instruction, it creates a new painting from scratch and paints it to create something that's unique, but hopefully to the client's taste, based on this previous art analysis. And so far, apparently we're told, this robot artist has sold over £1 million worth of art. Now, is it art or is it just a gimmick? Who knows? The debate is ongoing, but it's certainly a very interesting example. Okay, and then on the content side of things, on the text content, so one of the points about this AI is that it's very flexible for different types of data, not just numbers, not just images, not just audio data, pretty much any data set can be analyzed using some of the advanced tools. And in the writing space with text, companies like Alimama, which is a Chinese company, has been using this software to write copy in Chinese, in this case. And this copy is so good that it's been tested in research, independent research, and the headlines that this software is creating for some of the ads is being judged by customers as being better than some of the headlines that have been generated by a human team. And now that's not to say that, you know, that it's one versus the other. The two can work very strongly together. As we all know, if you're a creative person, you can hit creative blocks or walls, and therefore a piece of software that generates some ideas can help you get through those creative blocks. And this software is doing that in Chinese, talks about pumping out 20,000 lines or headlines for ads in a second, so incredibly powerful. But again, it should be more about enhancing the human team capability than trying to replace it. It's definitely not at that stage. And we are talking about headlines and single lines of text rather than anything longer. Okay, let's have a look at a few other examples, a bit different. Just going to skip forward. Starbucks, a company that most of us have some awareness of, if not being a fan of. So Starbucks have always been quite innovative in the sort of digital space, and so they're always experimenting with the latest new thing. They have an awful lot of data on their customers. Obviously, if you visit a shop every day of your life and use their apps and their websites as well, that ends up with an awful lot of data about your preferences and your lifestyle and what time you go to work and when you have your first coffee and all that kind of stuff. So what they now do is feed that data into an AI software setup and analyze it in order to find patterns that they haven't been able to find previously, because analyzing huge data sets gets pretty difficult. You can't do it in your Excel spreadsheet anymore. And even if you put it into the traditional data analytics tools, you have to do a lot of work deciding how to analyze the data. Whereas these new AI softwares, once set up, and that's not to say that's an easy process, can proactively look through the data and find patterns that you may have missed. And so what they've been using it for, being a commercial company, is making recommendations. So which customers like to buy which product with which coffee, and which customers have a similar profile to other customers. So even if they haven't bought that product recently with their coffee, they might like to be suggested to do so, particularly if it's incentivized with some sort of promotion. And doing it on patterns that allow business growth that haven't already been totally identified and used in the past. So new opportunity for growth. Okay, let's have a look at a few other examples. Amazon, I think, is one we're all fairly aware of. Okay, I mean, here's one that I've been involved with personally. So working with a loyalty platform that spanned the sports and the retail sectors. We had a huge database, or a pretty large database of data going back several years of more than 1 million customers. And again, we were always thinking there must be some patterns, some opportunities hidden in that data that we're not currently exploiting because we just don't have resources to look at all of that data in detail. Certainly not on a frequent basis, like every day or every hour of the day. In simplest, what we end up doing is using some of these new tools. Now, this was a few years ago, so the machine learning capabilities were just being made available, open self-service on the Amazon and Microsoft Azure cloud, and also companies like SAS were making those tools available. And so we experimented with the help of a very capable data science team on using those tools to find new patterns. And lo and behold, we did find some new profitable sales opportunities. We tested those week after week, and we consistently found that targeting those sales opportunities, recommending product A rather than product B to customer C, gave us significantly more sales. Sales were significantly more profitable. That delivered significant ROI, and that was an absolute eye-opener for all of us in that case. Okay, so I'm just going to flick through, pick out a few more. Okay, this one is interesting because it kind of goes into the space where AI gets a little bit creepy and people start getting a bit worried. The picture that you should be able to see on screen, it looks like a person, but it's actually a person that doesn't exist. What the tool has done is it looks at lots of photos of different people, identify what makes up a face, two eyes, one nose, a mouth, etc., and then generate this non-existent face pixel by pixel so that what they end up with looks like a real person. Now, how do we use this? Should we use it? Is it just too creepy? Who knows? It's very early days. What's interesting is that this system is able to do that, and it actually does it by having two of these AI systems kind of battle each other, and one of them creates the face and the other tries to decide if it's true or fake. And ultimately, the one that's creating the face gets so good using the feedback from the other machine that it's able to create a face like this that looks looks real without going down with a really close look. So creating real content, is it of use? Who knows? Will it replace photo libraries? Who knows? But the capability is definitely worth being aware of. Of course, let's not just talk about the positive side. In fairness to our Chinese audience, I don't want to just talk about negative. With a Chinese story on screen, we did have a positive story previously. The point we're making here is that these capabilities can be used for lots of different things, and we need to have a clear set of ethics in place to make sure they're being used fairly. So in this example, there is a case study where AI setups are being used to generate news readers, so simulated people that read out the news. Obviously, the fear there, and maybe it's an overrated fear, is that they could be used to read out news that isn't true if someone wanted to mislead an audience. I'm sure that's not been the case in this particular example, but it does highlight how we have to be careful and put some guidelines in place in how this technology should be used. Okay, let's just pick out a few more examples. Microsoft and LinkedIn. So most of us know Microsoft, use their software at a different stage. They bought LinkedIn, which is a big business-to-business social media network a few years ago now. And they've decided they want this power of AI to be available to their millions of customers at a click of a button. Microsoft, that is. And therefore, they're building it into pretty much every tool, from Microsoft email or Outlook to Excel to LinkedIn recommendations and beyond. And being Microsoft, with all their experience with Joe Public, you and I, they recognize that it's not really simple to use. It's not going to be used by the majority. So when you look at the recommendations that come up on LinkedIn, if you're looking for a new job or attack, the recommendations there are generated most often using these machine learning techniques. So what you looked at in the past, your profile, what you clicked on in the past, all of that data can be fed in to make predictions of what you might like to see recommended next, as in relevant companies, relevant jobs, relevant contacts. I think we've all started to see now, as we write an email on Outlook or in Google Mail, we get suggestions now of how to complete a sentence or even start a sentence, and it's really getting quite good now, certainly for one sentence suggestions, and you can do that on LinkedIn as well. And Microsoft, buoyed up by their recent kind of resurgence in the cloud computing world and beyond, are really testing some innovative use of this technology in these areas. On the HR side, companies like L'Oreal and Unilever, a big consumer brand company, supermarket brand company, and PwC, using it in the HR space to make recruitment processes more scientific and more scalable. So most companies have significant recruitment costs. Most companies recognize attracting the right talent and retaining it is one of their most important objectives, but most companies still have a very manual recruitment process. The ad goes out, recruitment agencies sometimes help find profiles. There's a mad rush to try and get enough CVs in, and then the interviewing process starts. And all of that is done based on gut feel and human expertise rather than detailed mathematics. So in this case, what PwC and these companies did is they created a tool that analyzed a series of profiles of existing employees whom had been identified by the company as being examples of successful executives from senior to junior levels. So they picked out profiles, not saying that these are the only success models, but these are examples of people that stayed with the business, are doing well, are being promoted regularly, and we'd love to have more. And then what the tool was able to do is analyze those profiles and look at the information of people. The thing about these tools is they can look at whole mass of messy data, and as long as they've been set up ethically, they can winnow out the relevant factors. So, what sort of qualifications define a better candidate? What sort of work experience define a better candidate? What shouldn't we be looking at according to the law? Things such as age and other no-go areas. And then making predictions for the sort of profiles that seem to succeed at a company, rather than finding this out after the end of the probation period. And so they created a success model for recruitment, which on testing was proven, through maths, through numbers, to significantly improve on the process of hiring successful candidates. And that was proven based on analyzing historical data and also then using it in the recruitment process going forward. So a really interesting area of using these tools in HR and recruitment and talent management. Okay, have a look at one or two more and then move on. Just try and select some examples that are a bit different or looked at already. Okay, energy and extraction. So many of the big extraction companies, mining companies, energy companies like Shell recognized that their traditional ways of finding where to find new energy resources had been pretty much fully exploited. They've been around for centuries and they weren't producing the hits at the rates they used to. And so in this case, Shell, but this was started off by a smaller company more than a decade ago, they started asking mathematicians and scientists and all sorts of different people to apply different types of techniques to analyze the traditional mining data to see if they could find more success. And in this case, Shell set up an AI tool which crunched and analyzed huge amounts of data, 46 petabytes according to this example. And also, rather than just analyze a subset of all the data, 1,000 of the readings, so what the soil is like, what the local environment is like, the geography, they were able to analyze 1 million factors and find many more patterns that suggested probability of mining success than they had previously. And it was, again, mathematically proved that the predictions this tool made were significantly more likely to result in successful drilling than the traditional human-led approach. Okay, let's have a look. One last one here, Milton Keynes. Smart cities is a term that many of you are hearing, particularly those are based in cities that aspire to be called smart one day. Milton Keynes is a town in the UK, not a huge city, maybe a few 100,000 people, I believe. but it's always been a well-planned, it was in town that was planned from the start in order to use technology and latest thinking techniques to maximize its effectiveness as a town and the satisfaction of its population. So now they're using sensors in order to predict when things like bins need to be emptied, public bins full of rubbish, when lights can be switched off because there's not people around to save energy, how traffic lights can be adjusted so that traffic flows more freely, so that the whole town feels like it's moving even better. And this is a town that traditionally has been seen as a significant success story. And all the software that they've used is open source software, which means it's available in public domain and it's relatively cheap to use versus some of the commercial alternatives. So in terms of conclusions then, based on these case studies, we can see that the use of AI currently stretches from very proven areas to very experimental areas around the content creation side. And it makes sense that companies adopt a similar approach, either invest in the relevant proven use cases that are established and impossible to argue with, but they also test and trial in the more experimental areas so they don't lose out before they're in front of their competition. So from these case studies and our own experience, we're now extrapolating into some success measures, success factors that we think define how a AI project can be more likely to be successful than not. Okay, so just going to quickly flick back to the main screen for any questions. So let's have a look. Yeah, so it looks like a few of the audience are still having some issues seeing the screen share. So as I said earlier, there should be a button on your screen that allows you to access the screen share. Not sure if you need to download something, but just click on that button as soon as you can see it, follow the instructions. Any problem, refer to live support, but we are sharing a Word doc, in fact, through a screen share, BrightTALK screen share for this presentation, and we'll make a synopsis of the content available as a follow-up. Okay, so that's that one answered. That one is a common question. If you can't see a button to find the content, just click on the help option and talk to support. Okay, I think that's all the questions we've got. Yeah, okay, so moving into the final section, success factors, maybe the most important section. So, as I said, this is based on the case studies we've looked at, our own project work, looking at the numerous academic papers that are published in the space every month, every week sometimes. So these are the common elements that we see as delivering success based on our own successes and failures as well. Success factor one, having simple aims. So what do we mean by that? We find that many companies, ones we've worked with, ones we've talked to, spend a lot of time, too much time, arguing about the aims of the project. Should we tackle question A, question B, or question C? And after having wasted a lot of time on that debate, then the data science experts will often then disappear for a week or so, and all too often then come back saying the analysis can't be completed for a variety of reasons. There's not enough data, they haven't got the right tools, the questions weren't correctly formulated. That's clearly an inefficient process, particularly if you're in a hurry. So what we found over time is it's much better for the team together to try and work together to dive into the data and the content as early as possible, and then let the best opportunity to identify guide the priorities. So if we can't answer question A using the data and the tools we've got, let's see if we can answer question B and C and get a win out. At the end of the day, if we haven't got the data, then some questions will be beyond the capabilities of the project. Now, related to this, we have, over the past few years, been reviewing all of the main and smaller tools that have been provided by the big companies like Google and Amazon and Microsoft to allow us to set up these AI tools. And the good thing with many of these is that you can try them out free of charge, which is something we think is really important. So with, for example, Google and Amazon and Microsoft, you can get some credit for free on a new account, which allows you to have a play with these tools free of charge until you used up that credit. Now, the tools that these big companies provide are very, very clever, but we've found that sometimes they're a bit too clever for someone that may have a lot of business common sense and experience, but maybe lacks some of the data science experience or isn't so experienced in the jargon and can get a bit lost or overwhelmed by the options on some of these tools. So fabulous tools, fabulous tool sets, great we can use them for free, but sometimes a little bit too complicated for some people. So one of the things we've done, and this is not a sale because all of this is free of charge, is we've created a tool set. We've built a tool set on the back of another tool set that allows anyone to start to use these tools free of charge in a simpler way. And the idea being that as long as you've got some business common sense and some data, you can upload that data and with a bit of help from our back end, start to do some analysis. And that's on our website, todaysimpleai.com. But as I say, it's all free of charge, so we're not trying to sell anything here. Okay, success factor 2, learning. So this is new stuff for most companies, most people. And with anything new, it's really important to help our people train themselves from the top of the company to the bottom, because at the top, we need understanding that this stuff is important, otherwise projects won't get supported and, projects will be started but not finished. And at the bottom, or the middle, is where all the hard-working staff are actually doing the work. So senior people often just need to know the principles of what we're trying to do, and then the doers need to know how do we use the tools and the data to get the results that we need. So there's a lot of learning. More generally, everyone needs to know what we're trying to get to so these projects are supported. Now, we believe, through experience, the best way is to embed a sort of artificial intelligence learn and play culture in the business. I get people learning about this stuff, playing with the free tools, so that over time, the fear drops away and the confidence grows. And it's kind of like the internet boom of the late 90s and early 2000s, where businesses that were totally non-digital had to try and get their staff playing and learning with websites and apps and social media and all that stuff. It's a similar principle in this area. Demystify this stuff so that people can really see its value. Now, another thing we've spent time doing, and we've documented all of this, it's all available free of charge on our website in the sort of blog area, Today's Simple AI. It's all free of charge. We reviewed a lot of the top AI training courses, particularly ones that are available free of charge or at low cost. So from companies like Google, the YouTube content, Coursera, and we've just tried to analyze what are the pros and cons of these courses. And again, the pros are that a lot of this stuff is free or very low cost. The cons are that sometimes it can be a little bit daunting for non-data scientists, non-experts, complete beginners, even ones with lots of business experience to get their heads around. In order to balance that, we've also launched some free training tools and content on YouTube, on Eventbrite and beyond, and again, those are available for anyone to use. Success factor number 3, and I recognize we're coming into the final section here, data and content. Now, this is in fact where many AI projects shudder to a grinding halt, because at best, the data or the content needed for the project is scattered around the business in multiple formats, systems, and silos, hidden away sometimes. That's best case. Worst case, you don't know what you need, and therefore you don't know where to go looking for it. Now, most of us know that situation very well. Let's get on to some good news. We have some shortcuts. Firstly, if somewhere in the world has already built an AI model, which is similar to what you want, you can quite often find it, access it, and then adapt it for use. Because a lot of these models, thankfully, are being offered free of charge, put in the public domain, open source, so that anyone can access them. And there's a great movement in AI to make these things widely and freely available, so the whole world can benefit and learn together, which is a great thing in this industry. If not, if you can't find a model that's close enough to what you need, and these are found in what are often called model zoos, the kind of zoological parks of AI models where you can, like an app library, find a model that's close to what you need. If you can't, some of the newest tools or the newer tools do allow you to build your own model, your own AI model, quite quickly, and thankfully without needing loads and loads of technical expertise, which most of us don't always have access to. Thirdly, if you lack access to the data required inside your company, you can often find data online. So there's a growing library of a growing number of data libraries online. Kaggle is one of the famous ones, kaggle.com, I think it is. Again, we've got a free list on our free blog listing out many of these, where you can find data libraries that might be the sort of data you need to build your model, or you can scrape it from the internet using scraping tools. And then after that, you can also, if necessary, use online teams such as Amazon's Mechanical Turk to tidy up that data for use in the analysis. Then with the very latest tools in this space, this data can be quite messy, quite complex, quite unstructured. It can be numbers, can be text, can be images, can be audio or video files. So at the more sort of innovative end, I would say, or the newer end, kind of newer, of AI, in this deep learning space that we touched on earlier, deep learning tools can cope with quite a mix of data sets. You don't need to clean up the data. You can use different data types, as long as you've got some help setting it up. And therefore, you can use much more of your corporate data to find the results you're looking for. So the question, let's look at some specific questions. Can we find the best people to target? So that could be the right people to recruit. That could be the right customers to sell to. How do we find the next best people to target, those people to recommend this film to? So here we use the historic customer data, so what was sold to customers in the past, or employee data if we're talking about recruitment, put it through our AI analysis to find patterns that this type of customer typically bought this product when this happened, when you sent them this piece of communication or showed them this ad or gave them this thing on social media. And here are some similar looking customers that if you do the same thing to, they're 95% probably going to behave the same. Or like we said with the recruitment, here are successful employees and here are some people online that look pretty similar. If the question is more like, can we become more visible for our brand strengths, for our corporate strengths? Well, here we might analyze marketing data to look for the effectiveness of the content that we've got. So if we have a corporate content strategy and we're pushing out content on video content, text stories, press releases, well, we can pull back the digital data around that content, put it through the analysis machine that we're talking about, and create predictions for which content should work best the next time we do a release. And if our question is, can we improve our business communication? Again, we could analyze our customer service data from a customer service call center in order to find out which responses are getting to the solution most effectively, most quickly. Now, gathering the data required inside a business is usually an ad hoc process currently because it's often scattered across multiple systems and often in different formats. But because these newest AI tools, particularly deep learning tools, can ingest different data types with a relatively easier, it means that we don't need to do so much data tidying before we can get started with analysis. Okay, choosing tools. So the data is uploaded into the AI tools, either manually or from one machine to another through a data gateway. And then the AI tools turn that data into a format that it can be analyzed, and there's a process for doing that. And then it pushes that data through these mathematical calculations that identify the patterns and the relationships between the data points. And it cycles through that multiple times until the predictions get better and better, looking at historical results. Then the tool tells you, I've got to 90% accuracy on this prediction or this pattern analysis. If that's satisfying to you, you can say stop there, and now I can download that model, literally the model that's made that prediction, and reuse it in future, or leave it in the machine and reuse it in future to make predictions. So with these projects, we often start off with a training stage. That's where we put in the historic data and identify patterns in the historic data. And then we want to scale up, if the test is successful, to use across the business. Now, the good thing about the latest tools is they're very scalable. We can do the prototyping and testing, and we can also scale that up to use across the business rather than having to move from one tool set to the other in order to scale. And the reason for that is the companies like Google and Amazon and Microsoft have made these tool sets available. Google TensorFlow is a well-known one that can work for small scale but also scale up for as big as you need. And therefore, once you've selected one tool, and as I say, most of these you can try out free of charge, you can then know that you can stick with that throughout the length of the project. Okay, so Google Cloud AutoML, changed names a few times, I think that's the latest name. Amazon SageMaker, Microsoft Automated ML. These are the tools that will automatically do the model building for you, so that once you put the data in, the machine can chug through and build the models semi-automatically without you needing loads of PhDs or data scientists to do all of it. If you have some, that's great, but this automates some of that process. Okay, so then we've done our prototype, we've built the model. Should the system be rolled out across the business? To do that, we need to have a system that's easy to use, that anyone can access, and can be updated on a regular basis. In order to make that decision, it becomes more of a standard corporate decision-making process. Is this system going to be significantly valuable? Is it replacing guesswork 50% of the time in a low-risk area? Well, if it is, let's roll it out. If it's a higher-risk area than like healthcare, let's be a little bit more careful. Then subsequently, we may need to connect the model to a website or an app through a data gateway. That's fairly straightforward now through these things called APIs. Or we may just use it as a standalone platform as a data analysis tool. So similar to our Excel or our SAS, this would be our AI analysis tool for testing these predictions in future and building new models when we need them to predict different things within the business. Okay, wrapping up now, our conclusions, it's all about playing and learning. Let's quickly get into the data play stage. Let's use these free tools wherever possible. Let's let all the team get involved with that, and let's play and learn in order to make this whole process a lot easier than it's ever been before. And then in a similar way to digital became for everyone, AI will quickly become hidden and effective without overcomplicating things and confusing people. Just going to flick back, see if any other questions have come up in the last minute here. As I say, we'll provide a synopsis of the content. Feel free to get in contact through BrightTALK, through online, in order to follow-up questions, or if you have any other queries. The website, our website, where everything is free, is todaysimpleai.com, and just like to finish off by saying thank you for your time. We haven't got any unanswered questions, but pop them in if you have any. And let's keep in touch and let's help each other to master AI. Thank you very much.